in the entire world.
I have
And I was
Polish
like,
friends. That checks out.
so when we did second edition, we included a Poland-Lithuanian Commonwealth, which is what the Sarmatian Commonwealth is. And the Sarmatians are kind of crazy. They have this thing called Golden Liberty. They think everyone should be able to vote for the king. And you can like throw the king out. You can like vote the king out. Everybody. Like they think women should vote.
What?
So we burn them as heretics, right? We just need to set fire to all of them.
So
okay.
So Sarmatia is a wonderful place because it's all about, it is in because in old times there was essentially our version of which is a version of Greece, which is Numenari, but it is the birth of modern democracy, and it's actually based on historical Poland. Poland at the time voted for their kings. And all that. So that's really cool. Those are the nations of 7th Sea. That's where you guys come from. Now this is the 17th century, which means that you're going to be thinking of in terms of Pirates of the Caribbean. You're going to be thinking in terms, that. So there's pistols, muskets, sword fighting. There's not a lot of heavy armor because pistols kind of shoot through that, so it's not really as useful as it used to be. And there's a lot of sailing and discovery. There is a new world across the ocean that's recently been discovered. It was discovered back in the 1300s when essentially the Castilians showed up, and the Castilian captain said, "I'm Quetzalcoatl," and Quetzalcoatl said, "No, you're not," and killed him. And for a long time, nobody went to that land because they kept getting killed by the giant white rainbow serpent. But recently, we've been able to make contact with them peacefully and start trading with them and things. So now there's this huge trade route that's going over what's essentially the Pacific or the Atlantic Ocean. And that's where you guys are going to be playing in.
That's pretty fantastic.
So now I'm going to teach you how to use the system. System's really easy. I want you to take a look at your character sheet. And on your character sheet, you're going to have 5 traits. And the traits do not describe how, let me just do it this way. So the traits describe how you do things. So, for example, there's a room that's on fire and you want to get out of the room. If you're going to use brawn, which is pulling, lifting, pushing, physical acts of physicality. If you can use brawn to get out of the burning room, you just bash through the wall. If you use finesse to get out of the burning room, which is quickness and agility and nimbleness, you will leap between the flames, then out the window and land in a hay bale or a fountain. Because in this game, because it is a Alexander Dumas swashbuckling adventure game, whenever heroes jump out of windows, they land in hay bales or fountains.
Sure.
It's a rule.
Yeah.
Next is resolve. Resolve is the John McClane Die Hard ability. It's the ability to say no. It's the ability to resist pain, temptation, torture, all that other kind of stuff. And if your character uses resolve to get out of a burning room, you just walk through the damn fire because you're just that tough. Next is wits, which is the ability to wits is not wit. We're going to get to that. Wits is the ability, it's the Sherlock Holmes ability to look around and see things. So if you use wits to get out of a burning room, you look around, you find the tapestry, you cut it down, throw it over your head, and get out of the fire that way. Mm-hmm. And then finally, panache, which is the last word that's spoken in the Cyrano de Bergerac play, which is why it's in this game. Panache is the ability to convince other people to do what you want them to. So it's charm, eloquence, all that kind of stuff. So if you use panache to get out of a burning room, you convince somebody else to carry you out. Mm-hmm. And those are the 5 traits.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know. I embedded that.
I'm sorry?
Did I embedded that? It's good to know.
Yeah, I embedded. No, you are not. You have 2 dice in it.
Okay.
How do I finesse my way out of a burning room?
Limbo.
You leap
acrobatic
through, between the flames and then jump out.
Got it.
All right. So now you have skills. The skills should be all pretty self-explanatory. Aim is any ranged weapon that you fire or throw. So anything you fire or throw, crossbows, muskets, knives, anything you fire or throw is aim. Weaponry is anything that you hold in your hands to fight. So it's swords, axes, pole arms, clubs, and anything you hold in your hand to fight.
Even your fist?
That is brawling. So, and then everything else is pretty self-explanatory. There's a sailing skill, there's a notice skill, there's all that kind of stuff. So in the game, the way the game works is that you're going to roll dice, and then you're going to look at your dice and you're going to make what are called raises, which are essentially successes. And each raise you make is going to be an action you can take. So if you have 4 raises, you could take 4 actions in a scene. More importantly, in this game, when you spend a raise, you tell the game master what happens next. So when this is not a game where you roll dice, you tell me what you want to do, and then I interpret your dice. I don't do that. You do that. You tell the GM what happens next, including failing. You can choose to have your character fail.
Cool.
And when you do, you get rewarded. So here's how the game system works. When I announce that there's going to be an action scene, which everybody's going to roll dice, everybody's going to tell me their approach. And your approach is a trait and a skill. And then you're going to roll a number of dice equal to that trait and skill. And you're going to make sets of 10. So for example, if you roll a bunch of dice and you have a 5, a 4, a 3, a 1, a 2, and a 1, you start adding the dice together until that group of dice adds up to 10. And you can go over, you can be 12 or 13 or whatever, but as soon as you hit 10, you stop counting, and that's a raise. And then when everybody has all their raises, then let me know how many raises they have. Whoever has the most raises decides who goes next. And that person starts spending their raises. And like I said, you get to tell me what happens next. So let's have an example. There is you all are in a castle in Montaigne, and the castle is on fire because it has to be. It's an action movie. In the room are these situations, which are called complications. And what complications are is at the end of a scene, if you have not resolved a complication, something happens to the heroes. Something happens to you guys. So here are the complications in the room. Number 1, the room is on fire. If someone does not use their raises to deal with the fire, everyone is going to take damage from the fire. Number 2, there is a small family of servants who are trapped in a corner surrounded by fire. If someone doesn't rescue the servants, they're going to die. Number 3, there's a letter from Queen Elaine of Avalon that's on a table that is dangerously close to the fire, and we need to get that letter. And if somebody doesn't get it, it's going to get enveloped in the fire. 4, there are guards in the balconies up above in the room, and they're firing muskets down at you. If someone doesn't deal with the guards, the muskets are all going to shoot you. And finally, there is a villain. And a villain has the prince that you're trying to rescue over his shoulder, and he's about to leap out the window and escape. If someone doesn't stop him from escaping, the consequence is he will escape with the prince that you're trying to rescue. So there's the fire, there's the guards in the balconies, there's the peasant or the servant family, there's the letter, and there's the villain. Those are 5 complications you all have to deal with. So I'm going to ask you all what your approach to this scene is. Elizabeth, I'm going to ask you first, and I want you to tell me which trait and skill your character is going to use to solve some of these problems. And don't take too long to think about it. Just pick your best ones.
So I'm definitely using the resolve. Yeah,
Okay.
resolve and empathy.
Resolve and empathy. Okay, great. So you have created an approach of resolve and empathy. Keep that in mind. All right, Kevin, what is Ludwig Schlamman's approach to the scene? What is the trait and skill?
Yeah, the Schlamman. He sees these people in trouble. He's very concerned. So he's going to notice them. And of course, he's going to also use resolve to get them to a safe place.
All right, so you are going to be using resolve and notice. That's your approach. Remember that. Okay. John, what's your approach?
Yeah,
Trait
I'm
and
going to use brawl and brawn.
Very good choice. All right, so that's your approach. And then Edward, what's yours?
I never like it when someone is higher above somebody shooting down on somebody else. So I shall use finesse and weaponry in order to go and cut those people above us down to size. But I shall do it as the masked man and put on my dynamo mask that covers nothing, and then change my attitude and be like, "Avast ye! I shall cut you down to size."
I
Very
like the
well done.
vibrato.
Are you Kirkland brand Zorro? Is that
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, that's
That's actually the two I'm drawing from. Exactly.
Andre, what is your approach for this scene?
Well, I don't know about these other strange individuals, but can't let the villain get away. So he's going to chase down the guy who has the prince.
So what
And,
is the trait and the skill you're
So
going to
it would be brawn and weaponry.
All right. So now we have everybody's approach. What I want you to do is take a number at D10 equal to your trait and your skill. Now, there's a rule in this game called flair, which is every time you use a skill for the first time in a game session, you get a bonus die. So if you change your skills during the game, you'll get a bonus die every time you use a different skill. So take your trait and your skill and add 1 die and roll your dice. And so, for example, I am going to, come on, roll a D10. So, for example, can I screen share? I can't screen share, right?
no? Apparently not.
I think actually no, I can't screen share. That's okay. So for my roll, I rolled a 9, a 5, a 3, an 8, a 4, and an 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my highest die that I rolled and my lowest die and add them together, and that should make a 10. And then I'm just going to go through like that. You can use 3 dice to make a 10. You can use 4 dice to make a 10. If one of your dice rolls 10, that's a raise. That's a 1 die raise. Yeah. And you can only use dice once. So once you have a group of dice, you set them aside, and that's your raise. That's your raise.
You said we can go over, right? So if we do like a
Like if you do a 9 and a 3,
Mhm.
that's a raise. As soon as you hit 10, you stop counting and you set those dice aside. All right. So Elizabeth, how many raises did you get? You're muted, ma'am. Elizabeth, you're muted. You're still muted.
Definitely muted through software because it lets us know.
Just, yeah, the Zoom itself, I think, is muted versus your microphone. There we go.
Yeah, it was like not letting me like get to the screen to unmute it.
Fantastic.
Trying to get to the screen. I'm like, screen. I got 6.
You got
Raises.
6 raises. Wow, that's pretty good.
I
Okay.
had 4 10s. I was like, what the crap? So
All right,
so that's
Kevin.
never gonna happen the rest of the game. So
Well, you never know.
I was feeling pretty proud of my 3.
John,
So,
how many did you get?
4.
4. Edward, how many did you get? 4. And Andre, you got 3? Okay. So everybody remember what their approach was, your trait and your skill. Here's how you use your raises. You can take any action you want, and you will tell me how that action resolves. Right? I'm not going to like be the judge of anything. Like, you just tell me how that action resolves. I have a GM veto for things like, well, the spaceship comes down. You know, like, no, that's no. Right?
There goes my plans.
However, Elizabeth, it's since okay, so you can take any action you want. If your action falls under your approach, for example, Elizabeth used resolve and
Empathy.
empathy, which is feeling how other people feel and that kind of stuff. If you describe to me an action that falls under resolve and or empathy, it costs you 1 raise to take that action. If you describe an action that falls outside of your approach, so for example, you wanted to punch out the villain, you can do that. That is a valid move. But because it falls outside your approach, it costs 2 raises. So you guys can do anything you want. You can take any action you want, and you tell me the result of it. And if it's in your approach, it costs 1 raise. And if it's outside of your approach, it costs 2. Do not be afraid to use actions outside your approach. It's fair. It's not cheating. It's just that it costs you a little bit more. So, Elizabeth, you have the most raises, which means the initiative system in this game is you get to decide who goes next. That includes you, and it includes the guards in the that are shooting muskets, and it includes the villain. So, who goes next?
Is there a disadvantage for holding them off too long? Okay, good to know.
So the you guys will see what the disadvantage is as we go. So Elizabeth, you can choose yourself. You can choose yourself to go next, or you can choose anybody else.
Let's see. Well, I know what I want to do, so I want to go next.
Okay.
So I see these people in fire, and of course I'm really good at resisting fire, and I'm empathetic to people. So I'm wanting to grab them and toss them out the window.
Okay, so you walk through the fire.
Yes.
Right? And are you going to convince them to jump out the window? Because that's kind of like what empathy would be.
Yeah.
Or do you just want to throw them out the window?
I'm going to convince them verbally.
Okay. You're like, you have to get out of here.
Yes.
So what happens? What happens to them when they jump out the window?
How many people are there?
There's 3. There's a mom, a dad, and a daughter.
Okay. How old is the daughter?
She's 12.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? You tell me how old is the daughter. It's your raise.
Of course. So she's 3. So,
okay.
So dad is resistant to go. Mom picks up daughter, goes out first. As mom gets towards the ledge, mom has daughter clinging to her side, sees a awning, slides daughter down, lands into the hay. Mom slides down herself. Dad then trips out the window, stumbles down, landing in a pile of manure.
Oh, awesome. All right. So that costs you 1 raise because it's under your approach. So now you have 5 raises left. You still have the most raises, so you get to decide who goes next.
I kind of want to see what happens if the villain goes next.
Okay. So the villain, actually let me count my raises here because I rolled for the villain. Generally in this game, it is, if you can tell, the GM doesn't roll dice. I don't roll dice. You guys roll dice and then you tell me what happens. However, villains are the exception. You all are heroes, and then there are villains, and villains roll dice. Villains have a couple other cool tricks up their sleeve too, but we'll talk about that later. The villain has 1, 2, 3. The villain has 4 raises, and villains don't have approach. Villains can use their raises any way they want. So the villain is going to spend 1 of his raises to say, the villain's name is Count. He's from the Sarmatian Commonwealth. So he has one of those really complicated Polish names.
Mhm.
And so his we're going to call him Count Savetsky because that sounds fine. And apologies to all of my friends in Poland. And the Count cackles at all of you and says, "May the flames devour you all," as he raises the window with the prince tied, his arms and legs tied behind him. And he says, "This should slow you down." And he raises a pistol and he shoots it at the chandelier with all the candles.
I was gonna swing on that.
And well, there's more than one chandelier, and it plummets to the ground, and all the wax and all the fire and everything else makes the fire worse. So now, in order to extinguish the fire, instead of one raise, it's going to cost 2 raises to extinguish the fire.
Ooh.
So that is the villain's action, and the villain is now down to 3 raises. So, Edward, your question about letting the villain go last.
Mhm.
If you put the villain off and the villain has 4 raises, he can spend all 4 raises in a row.
Ooh.
He can spend all of his actions, and that's dangerous.
Okay.
Right.
So, Elizabeth, you still have 5 raises. You still get to say who goes next.
Let's see. Edward.
Yeah, if it's not too outlandish, or maybe that's the nature of the game, using both the finesse and weaponry, I'm going to take my rapier and toss it like a freaking spear up to take out one of the musket guys, while trying to jump up and raise myself up to their level on the backup chandelier.
Excellent. Does that fall under your approach?
That's finesse and weaponry, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let me get this straight. You throw your sword away. Porthos, to quote the Three Musketeers, Porthos has invented a fascinating new way of disarming himself.
Yes.
You throw the sword, it skewers one of the guards,
Yeah.
and then how do you get up to the balcony?
I'm going to sort of backflip off the hay bale in the corner and wall jump a little bit and start kicking my way up to the backup chandelier, because of course I'm going to swing on.
Yes. Awesome. So yes, that is not one of our mantras. I have a poster on my wall that says, "What would Errol Flynn do?" So that was the mantra for the game design, was, could Errol Flynn do that? And the answer is yes. So yes, of course you can do that. So you're up in the balcony with the guards.
Yes.
And your sword is there, so you can probably grab it.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna pull that out of that guy and start stabbing the other guys in a minute. But first, I think I'll be sporting, and both to be sporting and because it sounds like if they go last, that's bad. I'm gonna give them a sporting chance to see what they do with a skewered one of their men.
All right, so that costs 1 of your raises. So how many raises are you down to?
Down to 3.
Okay. Elizabeth, you still have the most raises. Who goes next?
Oh, sorry, that's yeah.
See, because there's been very sad face comments going on in the comment section. Go ahead, 3 goblins.
Yay! My name says 3 goblins in a coat. That's the joke. All right. I am going to. All right. Can I go for the letter and with what I'm going to do? Can I go for the letter and try and assist on putting out the fire?
You can spend as many of your raises as you like.
Okay. So it would be
It's your turn.
3 to do both?
Well,
So
what's
there's
your
no-
approach?
Okay. I'm doing brawl. I'm doing brawl and brawn,
Okay.
and I'm going to punch the table upward so that the letter falls into my hand and the table falls onto the fire.
That's okay. So 1 raise.
Okay, that's what I will do.
So well, actually let's be clear. You
Yes.
actually wanted to spend a raise to get the letter and spend a raise to put out the fire.
Yes. So
Okay. So that's 2 raises because both of them fell under your approach.
Yeah.
Awesome. So one
I
raise.
run up.
So the letter is safe. The servants are safe. The fire has one raise, so the fire is down but not out. And there's still some guards to deal with, but they're being dealt with. And the villain is about to escape. So let's actually do this a little bit differently because we've been putting pressure on Elizabeth. Hey John, you were the one who went last. Who goes next?
I think. You think Schwarzenegger? He will go next.
The Schlamman is ready.
Yes.
The Schlamman sees the people are safe, and now he says, "My comrades, they are not safe from the fire." So he's going to get to the fire, walk through it because he has high resolve, pulls down the intricate fucking thing on the wall, and covers fire. Yeah.
So you pull down the tapestry, and that falls under your approach of was it Brawn and Brawl?
It was
Brawn and Resolve, or it was
resolve and notice. So he notices the tapestry.
Well done. So that deals with the fire. The room is still on fire, but it is no longer a danger.
Sweet.
Awesome. Kevin, you took the last, and that costs one raise because it falls under your approach. Kevin, who goes next?
Edric.
Andre, that's you.
All right, so Edric just kind of like strides right through the fire because it looks cool walking through a fire, and you can see he has a bunch of scars, and he's used to kind of going through fiery ruins. If you knew his backstory, so he's not scared by the fire. He just comes through with his sword, and he looks at the villain. "You will put down the prince right now if you know what's good for you. I'm only going to say this once."
So you're going to try to intimidate him?
Yes.
Okay. Is that fall under your approach or not?
Actually, no, it does not. You're right. I would just go straight for the stab, the swordplay. Can you change your approach?
You can take actions that are outside of your approach. They just cost you 2 raises.
Nah, I mean, I think seeing him just like create the fire even more intense, I think we're past the point of intimidation. So he would just try and maim him, not really kill him. Maybe try and stab him in a place where it'll get the prince to drop so he can pick him up.
Okay. So you want to cause injury to the
Correct.
villain? Okay.
Yes.
How many raises do you want to spend? The more raises you spend, the more injuries you do to him.
I only have 3, so we will do all 3.
All 3. Excellent. And you are playing Edric Croft.
Mm-hmm.
Let me look up Edric really quick because I want to see if Edric has... Oh, he has glamour. Okay. All right, so you cause 3 wounds to the villain. Hey, everybody, look at your character sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And at the bottom of that column, or at the top of the column, actually, you should see the death spiral. Bum, bum, bum.
It's got explodey characters.
Yeah, you do have explodey characters. So the death spiral count is how you figure out how close your character is to being helpless. So you see that there are circles and stars. The circles are wounds. They don't count. You're a big damn hero, and wounds don't hurt you at all. However, the stars are dramatic wounds, and they change how the game works. So, Andre, why don't you read for us what is it on the thing? It isn't. Oh, okay, because usually it says it on the character sheet.
Mm-hmm.
So the first dramatic wound. When you take the first dramatic wound, you get +1 to all of your rolls. +1 die to all of your rolls. Because in this game, when you get hurt, you get tougher. Because everybody is John McClane from Die Hard.
Got it.
The second dramatic wound means that villains get 2 bonus dice. When you have 2 dramatic wounds, these stack. So if 2 characters have 2 dramatic wounds, the villain gets 4 bonus dice.
And is a dramatic wound the star or 2 circles?
It's a star.
Star, got it.
So if I told you to take 3 wounds, you would fill in 3 circles. And if I told you to take 2 more wounds, you would fill in 1 circle. And then, eventually you get to a star. And that's when that dramatic wound takes effect.
Got it.
3 dramatic wounds means that your 10s explode. And you guys played Changeling. So when you
Right.
roll a 10, you grab another die and roll it and add it to your pool.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay.
Wow.
Finally, if you hit 4 dramatic wounds, it means that you are helpless. It doesn't mean that you're dead. It means that you're helpless. And that means that you have to, and we haven't gone over hero points yet, but it means that you have to spend a hero point in order to take any action. There's another rule for helpless, which is the only way your character can die. Your character can get eaten by a sea monster and not die. Your character can get fired out of a cannon and not die. Your character can do all kinds of crazy things and not die. This is the only way in the game that your character can die. If you are helpless, a villain can, because you guys have hero points, I have danger points. And a villain spends a danger point and says, I kill you.
Oh, snap.
That is the only way for your character to die. And that action, well, it gets announced during this little round that we're having. It actually happens at the end of the round.
Oh, okay.
So everybody has an opportunity to stop it. And the way you stop it is either you spend all of your raises or you spend a hero point. And that'll stop the villain from killing someone. And this is a really important rule. In the game, all NPCs, for the purpose of this rule, are helpless. So a villain can walk into your favorite tavern and go, I kill him, I kill her, I kill him, I kill her, I kill them. And just mow through a room full of NPCs.
Got it.
So is there like a particular like area that you have to use the danger points in, like maybe a zone perhaps that you would have to use the danger points?
No, I can use danger
sort
points
of
wherever
a
I want.
danger
Some
zone.
sort of dangerous zone.
Oh,
Yeah, perhaps.
Did you make a pun?
Yes, I did.
Or some sort of route.
An unforgivable pun. Like I embrace death at this point.
I do give warnings for my GM table rules.
Yeah.
So you have been warned about the use of puns. The next time you use a pun, I get a danger point.
Okay, that is fair. It's actually a really good policy. I might put that in there.
While you can quote The Princess Bride and Pirates of the Caribbean and any Errol Flynn movie you want, if you quote Monty Python, I get a danger point.
That's fair.
That's fair. Yes.
Yeah.
Because Monty Python is only funny when the Monty Python guys do it. I went to go see Spam-A-Lot. It wasn't funny. Because it wasn't John Cleese and
That's fair.
Eric Idle and the rest of them.
That's fair. That's fair. And I honestly, I failed my resolve roll. I'm really, I apologize for that one.
It's okay. So, all right. So now that we know how the and this is a rule, by the way, I have to do this every time we do it. Now you guys know how the death spiral works. Dun dun dun. It is now time for Schlamman. You went Edric, you went last. Andre, you went last. Who goes next?
I would probably, just because I like hearing the accent, Ludwig can. Is there everybody go? Was that the last person?
Has anybody not gone?
I think we've all
We
gone.
were very judicial about making sure everyone got a
done.
chance so far. Yes.
Got it. Okay, so I would definitely.
Team.
So here are the things left. The villain is still around. The 2 groups of guards are still around. The fire's been dealt with. The family's been dealt with, and the letter is now in safe hands.
So I would probably yell up to Caius, because he was taking care of the guards. They keep raining down bolts. Get them! Shoot harder, better, faster.
Try using violence.
All right, so that's my go. I give a while not losing any momentum while still swinging back and forth on the chandelier. I give a right ho, and then flip up, do a double backsalto and land. I like to think that my last turn and this turn, with the right ho included, hasn't slowed down any momentum. The guy who I've thrown my long pointy sword rapier into I lose no momentum, and before he fully hits the ground, he's slumping over. I flip over, grab the rapier out, and point it towards the rest of the guards, and I say, "Now you have seen my abilities. So I give you but two choices. You may either flee, or you may join my fight to stop the villain. These are but your two, because I dare say, should you cross me, your fate shall be the same as his." So I'm going to use 2 action points, because one of those is definitely convince, which I didn't claim, but I think that's too cool to not.
Yeah, you can totally take actions outside your approach.
Yeah.
So you can spend 2 raises.
Hmm.
And what happens? Do they decide to go with you or not?
Oh yeah, well a couple just flee. So I don't think I got the full force of everybody there, but a couple flee, and a couple of them are just like, yeah, no, all right, yeah, we've never seen the villain do that. I think they're now gonna help aid in anyone who takes action against the villain. They're on our side now, so I do not stab them to death.
Congratulations. That is the first time anyone ever, when I've run this little demonstration, someone has convinced the guards to turn to their side. Well done.
Oh really? Yay!
Oh yeah. So I'm going to say, and also because you were really awesome, Elizabeth, you have an extra hero point because you wore your thingy. And Edward, I really like your stuff, your style, so you get an extra hero point. Everybody gets 3 hero points, except for the, you know. And here's how hero points work. Before you roll, you can spend a hero point, and you get a bonus die when you roll your approach.
Okay.
Or you can spend your hero point and use it to help somebody else, and they get 3 bonus dice. So you can spend it on yourself to get 1 bonus die, or you can spend it on somebody else and they get 3.
Mm-hmm.
That's how hero points work.
And then bonus dice. So I still have all my dice out, so I know what numbers I rolled earlier. Do I add it to, like, I have a 4 and a 2 that were left over?
No, you use it before you roll dice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how would that enter into this encounter?
This not until we re-roll. It will.
I see. Okay, got it.
However, also a lot of your advantages, which we're not going to go into because they require you to look them up in the book and stuff, and it's much more fun to just jump around and be actiony. They also use hero points. Also, you can use a hero point as a free raise, right? Because a raise lets you say something that's true. You can say, you know what? I want a bunch of guards that are on our side to come into the room. And I'm like, okay, you can use that as a raise. That doesn't fit your approach. And you're like, I'm not using my dice. I'm going to use a hero point and say that happens.
Nice.
So that's what you use hero points for. All right. Who's next?
Oh, that's on me to decide.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess since the guards are on our side now, Andre, I believe you were dealing with the villain yourself. So I'm gonna bounce that back to you.
So after stabbing the villain right there in the thigh in the artery point, did he drop the prince to the ground?
I don't know. Did he?
Yeah, I would have assumed he would.
Okay, then he does.
Being stabbed in the thigh. So
he cries out, "Ah, curse you!"
It'll be all. I've been to hell, boy. And the hell I send you to will be much worse. The pain I send you to will be much worse than the hell I've been.
Fire
and so I'm just gonna call him boy, kind of like old grizzled man, and just try and intimidate him to figure out what his plot was.
Okay. So you want to figure out what his plot was for
yeah,
kidnapping the prince?
Yeah, just trying to like have my sword to his throat.
So all right. So in this case, because I'm playing a villain, I kind of the GM kind of plays villains, right?
Okay.
So the villain says, "Isn't it obvious? Kidnapping the prince gives me political power. The political power to change, to rid the Sarmatian Commonwealth of golden liberty forever."
Well, that's totally against my character stuff. He's caught my attention.
And then, here we go. I spent a danger point.
Oh.
And villains can spend danger points to do various things. The villain says, if I cannot have him, I will kill him. And he points his pistol at the prince's face. So the prince is going to die unless someone spends
Uses a
all
hero
of the,
point.
or spends a hero point, or spends all of their raises to save him. And it's going to happen when all of you are out of raises.
I have like the most raises, right? So like,
Yeah.
that mean like I technically have, like, for lack of a better term, like head in initiative, right?
Technically, yes, because you have the most raises. You decide who.
And we're in Montague, right, or whatever in Montaigne. And that means that's my prince. So I am going to use one of my hero points to like rescue my prince.
All right. So what happens?
You got muted.
I did. I realized it. So because it's empathetic and because it's the stuff. So I go running across, and let's see.
I'll give you a hero point if you take the bullet for him.
I was only gonna do that, and I was gonna do it as I was gonna do it. I was gonna see if there was any tables or like a chair or something I could put in front of me as I was diving in front of the prince, diving in front of the bullet, in front of myself and the prince.
Okay, so I'm gonna spend another danger point.
Actually, I see your act of heroism, and I have a bonus thing that gives me hero points if I do. At the last second, I almost swoop in and steal your heroism, and I take you are about to take the bullet, and I push you out of the way, activating my hanged man. I take if I take a damage in place of another hero, I get a hero point.
Don't you do that? I will give you a hero point if you say yes. That don't you do that because you're in love with Isabeau?
Yes, but secretly.
Yes, secretly.
Yeah.
So yes,
she would not be reciprocal, which is why you keep it secret, because she's still in love with her dead person she was going to marry. Yes.
I know that, and that's why it can never be spoken, but through actions, I show it.
Keep a very complicated politics.
So I'm going to spend a danger point. And what happens and this allows me to like interject and make things happen. So you push her and she falls out the window. With the villain.
Oh no!
You do take the bullet. In John's revised firearms rules, which I'm playtesting, so you guys get to be part of a playtest actually. When you get hit with a bullet, you either become helpless or you spend a hero point.
So what's a risk consequence?
The consequences are things that are the results of stuff that happens. So, for example, if you guys don't put out the fire, everybody takes wounds. That's that's what that is.
I think it's more dramatic if I become helpless. Can I become unhelpless? You know what? I'm going to ask. It's more dramatic if I become helpless. I earn the extra hero point, spend one to do it, so I'm at 3, and I become helpless. I have been shot. Right, it's not hit anything vital yet, but it seems to be gushing a little bit.
You're not dead, but it is dire.
Yeah, it's not good.
If we were reading Mallory, he would call it a dolorous blow. So there's this rush of events of Isabeau jumping in front of the prince, but then Caius, seeing that she was about to take a bullet, shoving her out of the way, and both you and the villain tumble out the window, crash into the awning that your servant family slid down before, and fall into the roof of a passing carriage, crash through the roof into and inside the carriage are a Montaigne noblewoman and a Montaigne nobleman who are about to kiss, and you crash through. And there's screaming and the carriage is heading off. However, the prince is safe. So what I'm going to do here is actually we're going to do a Star Wars thing. Well, first, I'm going to take a short break and I'm going to reload my cup with water so I can maintain my voice for the rest of the game. But we are going to cut to another scene, which is a little bit later in the series. Think of it like an act, like a Flash Gordon serial that has episodes, and you guys are in episode 3, and we're gonna miss episode 4 and pick up in episode 5. So I'm gonna get a drink of water. You all can use the restroom or whatever, and I will be right back, and we'll continue playing. So the before we jump into the next scene, I just want to point out a couple of things that 7th Sea does that other role playing games do too. I am not the person who came up with the player says what happens next. That was Jared Sorensen, my friend Jared, who wrote the Octane role playing game, where I stole this idea. But essentially, you guys are going to be doing stuff in a therapeutic setting, and that means trust, right? And one of the reasons that I wanted to run 7th Sea for people and a couple other games, and I actually do this with D&D too, is that the higher you roll, the more the player gets to say what happens next. And what it does is it completely demolishes the invisible antagonistic wall between the players and the GM. And so, because in a lot of games, which I won't say their names, but their initials are D&D, there is a huge antagonistic relationship between the player and the players and the GM, where the GM is supposed to be stopping them from doing things, and the players have all these systems on the character sheet to prevent the GM from hurting them. And in 7th Sea, that really doesn't exist, because the GM is not here to tell the players a story, I'm here to help you tell the story of your characters. And because the system essentially hands the GM powers to the players, they become empowered to say what happens next, and they will take risks with their character like Edward did and says, you know what, I'm going to take the shot. I'm going to be helpless. That would never happen in a D&D game. Because number one, trick question, how many times does it take a first level D&D character to hold a gun to their head and pull the trigger? It's a trick question, because as soon as they hit 0 hit points, they pass out. So you can't do it.
Oh.
So but in 7th Sea, the game encourages the players to contribute to the story. And as a GM, here's the other thing that's going to be really handy for you guys. There is 0 prep. 0.
Right. Yeah.
Because I didn't say that the prince was Elizabeth's, was a Montaigne prince. Elizabeth said that. And that added to the scope of it. The more we go, the more details you can add. I can do things like, I can say, you guys walk into, and this is actually what we're going to do. So a little bit of foreshadowing. You walk into a room and there's a murder scene. And I say, and this is an investigation scene. So everybody is going to roll, and you are going to tell me what the clues in the room are.
Oh, that's so good. All right.
Now, what this means is, number one, the GM doesn't have to do anything, because the players are going to make the adventure for you.
Interesting.
But number two, the players are going to, and you guys are going to do this, you're going to put clues in the room that lead to stories that you want. So the players are telling you, I want this involved in the story. And then all you have to do is give them what they want. Except because of the Aristotelian rule about endings, it has to be inevitable but surprising. So you give them what they want, but not in the way they expected it. So, with that in mind, episode 6. You are all in an Eisen hotel. Now remember, Eisen is the scary German horror swashbuckling place where monsters exist. Right?
And the Schlamman.
And the Schlamman.
So excited about monsters. All right.
Oh,
He's very good.
No, you're not. I'm not afraid. You will be.
You will be.
So the prince, you're in a room, and the prince's body is face down in the room, and he's dead. Now, I want everyone to tell me their approach, and then, considering your approach, and remember what all the things do, what all the traits do. Tell me your approach, and then make raises, and then we're going to find clues and whatever else is in this room. Because remember, you don't have to be beholden to wits. The first thing you're going to think of is, well, I should make a wits check so I can find things. That's true. But as soon as somebody finds something, you may have to kill it.
All right,
So,
for this.
This is an action movie. So, Elizabeth, what is your approach for this scene?
I was using weaponry and what was the other one? I was using finesse.
Weaponry and finesse? Okay. Now, GMs, note what Elizabeth said. She said, I'm using weaponry and finesse. You know what that tells me as a GM? There should be a fight scene. Okay. Remember this. The first rule of GMing, players are always telling you what they want. They're always finding ways of telling you what they want, including what's on their character sheet. When somebody picks wizard, that tells you what they want.
Right.
If you have a whole group of fighters, clearly this group wants something in particular. If you have a whole group of thieves, clearly, we have something going. So, Marek, what is your approach? What is your trait and skill for this scene?
I'm going to use finesse and theft.
Interesting. Okay. Kevin, what is Ludwig Schlamman? What is his approach for this scene?
At the Schlamman, he's going to use brawn, of course. And I think he's also going to use know the scene as well, because he enjoys the investigation sometimes.
You have to know the monster to kill it.
That's right.
Edward, what is Caius's approach in this scene?
Knowing that this is a place of supernatural spiritualism, I'm going to use a weird combination of the little that I know about the spiritual realm and scholarship, and hoping that I can convince the ghosts to help me out with what is around. So panache and scholarship.
Okay. Andre, what is Edric's approach to this scene?
Well, not being very perceptive or investigative, he's just going to stand and look like a statue and watch out for anybody who tries to interfere in this investigation. So he just plants his sword and just looks mean, basically standing as lookout. So he's gonna do notice as the skill. What would be the correct trait for that? Would it be
Wits would be the correct trait.
It would be, you said panache would be the correct trait? Or wits?
Wits. If you want to do like double notice,
yeah,
right, then it would be wits.
Yeah, so I would just stand and look out for any intruders while they investigate. So
Okay.
wits and notice.
Everybody make rolls.
Okay.
So it's all our dots plus an additional one.
Plus an additional one because of the flare rule, which means that nature boy, which means that you nobody got that joke. Nobody got the wrestling joke.
I got it. I just didn't react to it.
I got it. I was on mute.
I will direct you guys at a lecture I did why every GM should watch professional wrestling. And soap operas. But anyway,
I don't watch either of those, but I actually completely agree. That's actually really good advice.
So everybody make your rolls. Tell me how many raises you got. Go ahead and hold up your fingers.
And we can only combine 2 sets of die?
Yep. A trait and a skill.
So in Changeling, this would have been an amazing roll.
Yeah, I got a bunkus roll.
Hey, you know what? Hold on, guys. Did anybody want to spend hero points?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, I meant to.
Okay, remember, if you spend a hero point on yourself, you get 1 bonus die. If you spend a hero point on somebody else, you get 3. They get 3.
Gonna give one to Ludwig.
The Schlamman is grateful.
I would
Now,
also
you
give
I'm giving
one
him to
Ludwig.
Kaus or whatever it's pronounced.
Caius.
Okay.
So you
Great.
can only be helped by a hero point once. So everybody can't give all their hero points to the Schlamman, for example.
And then I can use it for 3, correct?
3. You have 3 bonus dice.
But then right back out as my unrequited secret love. I give you 1 back as well.
So Isabel, you get to roll 3 bonus dice.
Yeah, that will help me out a great deal, actually. Yeah, because I had crap rolls.
Hero pointed.
Can I get
Good
hero
lost
pointed,
track.
says Merrick?
Please give me a hero point.
Does anybody have a hero point for Merrick?
I will give him a hero point, of course. He's my comrade.
Excellent. He's very, very much appreciated. It's also very hard word to say.
I find
right.
words difficult as well.
I was running the game for at a convention with a group of regular group. So everybody's in the same group. And one of them showed up and they said, "Can we play our characters?" And I'm like, "Of course you can. You can play our characters." And one of them, his name was something like the Matic, something like that. He was the something. And he was wearing big gloves, big leather gloves. And it came time for the action scene. And I said, "What is everybody's approach?" And the Matic took off his gloves and on his knuckles, he had written brawn and brawl.
He knew what he was about.
Nice.
He knew what he was about.
That Ron Swanson bit where it's like, "What I think you heard me say, I know what I'm about, son." With that energy.
Ron Swanson is a 7th Sea character. He's just amazing. Now that
definitely.
everybody has spent hero points, now how many raises does everybody have?
4.
Holy
6?
wow.
Elizabeth, you're rolling really well
The
tonight.
10s are with me tonight.
Nice.
Awesome. Elizabeth, you have the most raises. Why don't you go first? Now, when it is your turn, you can spend as many of your raises as you want. You could spend all of them if you wanted. Or you can spend 1 or 2 and then pass it on to somebody else. So it's entirely up to you.
Can't I just have other people keep telling other people to go? Because this is hard to pick.
We'll only do it once, and then we'll follow the rule where the last person to go.
And we're like checking out the area still right now and trying to figure things out, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Is what's
We
going
know
on.
nothing. We know nothing about anything.
I am entirely not clever enough for this. In fact, that's actually character trait of mine of complete confusion, where I in fact earn a hero point for misunderstanding danger of myself and others, but not understanding what's going on in an area. And I am completely confused to know what's going on. So I look over at Kaus and ask him to explain to me what is going on here.
You get a hero point because you invoked your quirk.
Nice.
All right, Caius. She looked at you and said, "What is going on here?"
I'm not quite certain myself. I wish someone could tell us both. And then am I allowed to run my turn?
Sure.
Yeah, I look up at a loss for words and am startled to see that the prince himself has appeared in a ghostly apparition in the mirror. And then like and he seems to want to speak, but I have trouble understanding him myself. So he seems to give vague guided hints, but as he's fading into the astral plane, he can only give us so much information. So he can't tell us exactly what happened, but maybe if we beseech him nicely, we could get a sign.
Hey, I'll give you a hero point if you say that one of the problems is that he's speaking backwards.
Oh, yeah, and
because he's in the mirror.
Yes, and my character is way too dense to get that. Like what he said, if
Yeah.
anyone other than us two had been the ones to see that, that would have been clear. But I just turn around and I'm like, oh, the prince speaks tongues in the mirror, guys.
So here's how languages work in the game, because it's going to be important now. You speak a number of languages equal to your wits.
Ooh.
Now, all heroes have at least 2 wits, because you start with a 2 and everything when you make your character. So typically what people do is they say, I speak my native language and I speak Old Thayan, which is our version of Latin. Right? That way everybody can talk. So the question is, does anybody speak the language of the Sarmatian Commonwealth? Which is Retzipolitia.
Just because it's funnier, my character totally doesn't.
I think Ludwig probably would, the Schlamman,
Yeah.
because he's lost his memory, but he's traveling around a lot to try to get bits of his memory, and he forgets most things each day except for where he's been. And so, yeah, I think Schlamman's captured that language.
Schlamman, you are hearing the prince speak Sarmatian, the Sarmatian language, but he's speaking it backwards. So I think that means it's your turn. What is the prince saying?
Oh my gods, he's saying we must check under the bed. I'll go lift and throw the bed across the room.
And what's
Get
under
this
the
fucking
bed?
bed out of here. And there is a tunnel leading down into the dark.
Oh no, there's a tunnel leading down into the dark. Game Master's note that I had no idea that there was a tunnel
Yeah.
under the bed. So, hey, Kevin, who goes next?
And so that was noticing and bronze. So that would that be one? Yeah. Okay. Edric. Actually, let's go Merrick since. Well, yeah, I guess it doesn't matter because we just found a hole. But I'll stick with Edric since I said that first.
Okay.
Edric, it's your
Sure.
turn.
So Edric is just keeping vigil over the scene, and he's just slightly glancing over his shoulder. Would you guys hurry up? I can't know how many people I can fend off at this point. I'm quite tired and my knees hurt.
So, okay. So, does anybody show up? Because you are watching.
I would say he probably hears some movement coming from down in the castle. Maybe he sees like some torchlight, or he hears like metal going, or something across the cold stone.
All right. So yeah, you guys are in a hotel. You're in an Eisen hotel. So something is coming. Something or someone's or something's are coming up the stairs. Dun dun
Yes.
dun. Oh, here we go.
So he just sends a warning.
We have some atmospheric music. All right. Edric, who goes next?
We'll have Merrick go.
All right. I'm going to walk over. I'm going to very finessefully search the body.
What do you find?
Everything. I find a key. I find a bullet wound, and I find a paper cartridge for a pistol that has a gold ball and not lead.
Gold ball.
Yes,
That's interesting.
terrible bullet, but
Well, in Eisen, you need special weaponry to kill monsters.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Was the prince a monster?
Mm.
It makes sense to me. I've seen many monsters.
Merrick. Well, Merrick, that costs you 1 raise. So who goes next?
I'm going to kick it back to Elizabeth. Or Isabeth.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Doublet. There we go.
The thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That works. And I've got, my pistol out and my rapier. So it's, doublet works. Yeah. And
Double.
yeah, exactly.
I made a pun. Everybody gets a hero point.
I'll take it.
So we've uncovered the pathway down the under the bed, and I go over and I pull out. I rifle through my bag and I pull out my flint and steel, and I light my torch, and I ask who will carry it for me as I start to walk down.
Oh, Caius, I don't think you get halfway through that sentence before Caius already has it.
Exactly, yeah. And so
Yeah.
I start heading down, like I said, and I put grab my pistol back. My pistol is always in my left hand. I dual wield, and I have mastered the use of my pistol with my left. And as we start to go down, we come to the first bend. They're right angles on this stairwell.
Okay.
And we hear a crash right in front of us. And as this crash happens, I hand it off to Edric.
Edric.
So, hearing the crash, he kind of he sees the people coming up from the staircase, and he hears the crash. And you all are finished doing what you're going to do. I'm going to go buy you some time. And so he grabs his sword and just kind of rushes down the stairs to try and maybe kind of confuse the people to go a different direction. He's going to run off in their direction.
So Edric, I will give you a hero. Well, actually, you know what? I'm not going to give you a hero point. I'm going to spend a danger point.
Okay.
What a tease.
The opposite of that.
And coming up the stairs is a ghastly figure, slender, like a willow, well, not a willow tree, but that kind of slender tree.
Mhm.
Dressed all in black with a pale white, ghastly white face. Wearing a funny little hat, and his rictus grin is very wide. It's like his grin almost goes to his ears. And which of you is from Schlamman? You're from Eisen, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. If you saw this, you would know that this is the Grinning Man,
Okay.
who is an Eisen legend who goes out at night and snatches up little children and eats them whole.
You guys, this guy eats children. I hate him. We must kill him.
Oh, let's see. Oh, let's
Right.
All right, then those who prey on those who are weaker, especially children, and then I speaking all eloquently or not, and then as soon as the mask hits my face, what ho! He must die.
So because I have introduced a villain, I'm going to roll dice for the villain. See how many raises the villain has.
2.
No, that would not be the case. So villains in this game have ranks. So a rank 5 villain has 5 dice. They roll 5 dice for everything.
Mhm.
And a rank 10 villain would have 10 dice. A rank 15 villain would have 15 dice. A rank 20 villain would have 20 dice. And you never know how many dice they have because I can roll fewer dice than they have. So I could the Grinning Man could be a rank 15 villain and I roll 7 dice. Because he doesn't have to roll as many dice as he has until he wants to.
Mhm.
Also, villains can use my danger points to do certain things. All right, let me see. Well, there's 2 10s. That's 2 raises. There's an 8 and a 2. That's 3. There's a 5, 2, 3. There's 4. And then 4, 2, 2, 1. Okay, so he has 5 raises.
Oh, snap.
So
of course he does.
So he steps up. He's stepping up the steps, and he says, "Ooh, it's the Schlamman. Come back to Eisen, have you?"
Schlamman is here, yes, and I will kill you.
I don't think so.
I know this is stupid smile, and I put my fist in it.
So, Schlamman, do you want to spend a raise to put a fist in the grinning man's face?
If I may.
Is there a way I can assist? Because I was definitely like
you are
Oh, yeah.
there. Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
You two are totally there. So let's have you two. How many raises do you want to spend to smite the grinning man? Remember, he has 5.
Got it. Okay, so raises might kind of like the more you use, the more damage kind of thing.
So you have a death spiral. So do
Right.
villains.
Got it.
And every raise that you have causes 1 wound, unless you have an advantage that says otherwise.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, if I could grab him by the shoulder, try to punch out some of his teeth. So maybe like kind of a grapple raise, kind of holding him in place, and then a good punch.
And we may assist with this.
Well, I'm going to say that there's only room for 2 people on the stairway at a time.
Oh, I was gonna. My 2 things were panache, which is convincing someone to do something else for me, which would be send somebody else to the stairwell, and then scholarship. I was gonna give a piece of information that might help by convincing somebody, if I may. I wasn't gonna go anywhere near the stairwell.
You can, but
He's
before
holding
that
the light.
happens, Kevin, you have one of your advantages is dueling account.
Oh yeah.
Which means that instead of doing 1 wound, you do a number of wounds equal to your weaponry or brawn or brawl. I'm sorry.
Nice.
For every raise.
Okay. So in that case, I want to say that I have a mace.
Okay.
And I'm smacking him in the teeth with that. So that'd be 3 for weaponry.
All right. So every raise you spend gives him 3 wounds.
So I would like to spend 2 raises.
So that gives him 6 wounds. That puts him past the first dramatic wound. And then Andre, what is Edric doing?
Yeah, Edric is just going to he is looking at he's looking at him just bashing his teeth in, and he's going to say, God, who is this lady? It would be, where does he get his power from? I think it says it on there. He speaks to, I just kind of want to say like almost like a battle cry before stabbing my sword through his chest.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're playing Edric Croft. Let me see if you have an advantage that will really quick.
And may I give something advice to Edric? Can I spend a point to give advice to Edric that might help?
Sure.
Then Edric, before you run over there, having gotten the bullet that Merrick found that was gold, it reminds me, using my scholarship, it reminds me of some of the old legends I remember about the Smiling Man, that gold may kill certain types of monsters indeed, which might be why our upstairs prince was shot. But also leaning in and dropping my hero act for a minute, because I have not had enough drinks for this morning. Sort of leaning in, I'm like, if I remember my legend correctly, that the gold may actually help you out. So if you have a weapon that either cast in gold or something in gold, either way may help you. That said, you must go this alone, because I have nary enough spirit in my bloodstream for this. So go on ahead. And what ho, my good friend! And then take like 2 steps back. I ain't having none of that.
Right. So I mean, his battle cry, I just found it. It says he is the embodiment of Wilfred, the knight of will. So he just goes for the Wilfred smite, or will for the will.
So yeah, you are from Avalon, so you have the magic of Avalon,
Mm-hmm.
and the magic of Avalon is the magic of legends. So there are all in England, there are all kinds of archetypal heroes. There's Robin Hood, there's Lancelot, there's all those things. And what happens is that those heroes are reborn in every age. So you are the reborn spirit of that hero.
Oh, cool. So,
right?
Interesting.
So, and that's the deal with that. So, let's for shorthand, because we're just kind of playing loose and fast. Let us say that your legend status will allow you to do the same thing that Caius can do, or I'm sorry, that the Schlamman can do, which is you can cause injuries equal to your weaponry or your brawn, whichever one you want to use. But because it's sorcery, you have to spend a hero point to do it. But it'll be good for the rest of the scene, not just the action.
Yeah, I'll do weaponry, and
Okay.
that's 3.
How many raises do you want to spend?
3.
So that's 9 wounds to the grinning man.
Yep.
Plus the 6 that the Schlamman already did, so that's 15 wounds.
Nice.
All right. Meanwhile, up in the room, Isabeau has gone down into the tunnel, and Isabeau, you said that you heard something down the tunnel, right?
Yes.
Yes. And since you left it vague, that means I get to decide what it is.
Fun.
You're going and you come around a corner, and there are these little shadowy creatures that kind of look like goblins. Little shadowy creatures with big glowing eyes and teeth. And these actually are the Eisen version of goblins. There's a word for them, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. And they have the prince's necklace, and they're fighting about it. 9 'tis mine. 9 'tis mine. 9 'tis mine. And there's 3 of them, and they're all grabbing it, and they're all pulling back and forth.
So, I'm gonna end up spending 4 of my points to do
4
this.
raises?
Yes.
Okay.
So here I am. Got this. I first, because I weaponry and finesse with this. So pop off first. So it's 1, 2, 3. The one on to my left.
Okay.
As it pulls towards the necklace, and so the one that is kind of like the tip of the triangle grabs the necklace, and it's now struggling between the two. I then take my rapier, I swing it around as I rush forward, grab my rapier, sweep it around, grab the necklace, swing it up. It's now flung backwards behind me, going up the stairwell, and then I take smacking my rapier, and I put my pistol into this pistol into this while I'm smacking into its holster. I smack. So this is going up this way. My rapier is going this way as I'm holstering it I pull out a second pistol from behind as I swoop back down, get the goblin that is closest, pull out my second pistol from behind, shooting the third goblin.
Bravo.
That was a Rango-esque explanation. I love it.
So yeah, do they all are they all? So here's the other thing: is that you don't kill anyone in this game.
Yes.
You just make them helpless.
Yes, they kind of
all helpless.
They're kind of like the one is like, what the crap did this thing just came out of at me, and he was like, I lost my jewels out of my hands, and this weird ass female with all these random things coming out of nowhere, smacking us around, looking up at us like, what the crap, and the jewelry is flung backwards somewhere up the staircase.
Oh, okay. Somewhere back up into the room.
It's somewhere between the staircase. It's like on the second, maybe third stair. It's behind me and I can't see it, but I I've got my trusty buddy behind me with he's watching both behind. He's still holding the flame. So yeah. And I think I hand it off to Kaus.
Caius.
Caius.
Of course, you got yours. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. If the gold thing earlier didn't do anything, can I take a point back, or is it?
What do you mean? The gold? So what you did
Okay.
is when you use raises like that, what you do is you create what's called an opportunity.
Okay.
An opportunity is a free raise. It's kind of like floating around.
Okay.
That anyone can use.
Okay.
And so, for example, if someone hits the grinning man, they say, I want to use that opportunity. And it counts as a free raise for the raise that I'm spending. So it counts as 2 raises if I use something gold.
Okay. All right, cool. In that case, at the top of the stairs, I see the prince's necklace that has been flung. And I I reach down to examine it. And I know that using my scholarship, I know that this is in the same language that I have already forgotten what it is that I don't speak that the princess speaks, is written on it, probably one of the final clues to solving the murder mystery, but I don't know what it says. So, Ludwig, when you are done smashing things, I'm probably going to hand it to you because you speak this. So I'm going to ask you to translate it with my panache. And you are
Ludwig,
muted.
you're muted.
Hold it up so I can see it while I smash in his teeth. So he's like trying to notice while he's smashing.
Yeah.
So what does the necklace say? Kevin, you get to say what the necklace says.
It's our final clue.
The necklace says, "It's time to smash Grinny Man. Now smash him." You don't know if that's true or not.
But I think we can make some safe assumptions.
Well, yeah.
So Ludwig, are you gonna hit the grinning man again?
I would really like to.
But you don't have any raises left?
No, I have one. So
right.
if I can do double my weaponry again.
Yes, you can absolutely use your weaponry to do damage to him.
Okay. Also, my quirks, I earn a hero point when I choose to hunt down an inhuman creature, so it'll never hurt anyone ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Does that get me another hero point that I'm smashing in this guy's teeth?
When you, if you don't dispatch him, he will definitely hurt someone again.
Okay, so when he's dead, I get a hero point, basically.
Yes.
And then I'm resorting to the edge of my mace blade to defend a noble ideal. Are there specific noble ideals, or like definitely children are innocent and I don't want them to be
I will
eaten
count
alive?
that as a noble ideal.
Okay. Anyways, so yeah, so if I have one raise left, but I would love to also use another hero point, so I could do a total of 12.
So you want to use a hero point to how do you want to use a hero point?
To get so I've been smashing in his stupid teeth, and then the Schlamman also smacks him left and right across the cheeks, trying to loosen the teeth out of his mouth. You no more smile, no more grin, you freaky monster.
Well, let me check here really quick. So you can't use a hero point to like boost your damage or anything like that. But
okay. But as an extra raise. So could I use it to
I
get
see what you want
hits?
to do. Okay, I get what you want to do. You want to spend a hero point to essentially get an extra raise. You know what? Sure. Sounds
Sweet.
good to me.
So then if each hit is double my weaponry, that's 6 and then 6 more.
That's 12, yeah. So you are doing you are crushing this thing's face with your mace. And you begin after, like, if you had been hitting anybody else, their face would just be like, tomato pie, right? And you are hurting him. It's clear that there's damage to his face, but it doesn't seem to be doing like what it should. And maybe that's because you're not using the right weapon. Because everything in Eisen requires the right weapon. But you are hurting it a lot. Both of you, Edric and you are hurting it a lot.
Sweet.
So, all right, who goes next? Remember, the villain still has 5 raises.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I get to choose. Let's give the
choose.
villain the turn. Yeah, for sure. Villain.
Isabeau, it's your turn.
I was saying villain.
He said villain.
Oh, the villain. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You want the villain to go?
Villain.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't want him to, but I will allow it so I can smash his teeth in some more.
Okay. So the grinning man has been taking these hits from both you and Edric, and in the pause while you catch your breath and get ready to smash it again, he says, Ludwig, would you like to remember all the things you've forgotten?
Trap.
Don't do it.
Because I can tell you.
The Schlamman would love to know these things, but not from you, you sick creature.
So, do you have any raises left?
I do not.
Okay. So he's going to spend raises. And suddenly, like a cat, like the suddenness of a cat, of a surprised cat, he leaps on the Schlamman and knocks the Schlamman down. And his hands turn into talons as he begins to rip at the Schlamman's chest and face. And he is going to spend... Let me spend his raises. 1, 2, 3 of his raises, which is going with his awful talons and everything. Is going, because he spent 3 of his raises. That's going to do 12 wounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are not good numbers.
1, 2, 3, 4. And each star, it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, and the star would be 5th. That would be
Yes.
1, right? That's okay.
So because you've taken the first dramatic wound, it means that you get a bonus die the next time you make an approach.
Well, I'm going to take 2 dramatic wounds.
Your
wounds,
second
right?
dramatic wound means the villain gets 2 bonus dice when they roll for their approach.
So thanks, Scoob. All right.
So the villain then, the grinning man sees the necklace.
Oh, it's I'm
It
still holding
says,
that crap.
and who's holding it? And
I'm holding it like this so it can be read too. I can't even attempt to hide that.
And so his eyes glow with this unholy glow, and he looks directly into your eyes, and he says, "Give me that or die." With his hands full of blood and gore from ripping out the chest and ripping at the face of the Schlamman. And he is going to spend a danger point. And because he spends a danger point, you either do what he says or lose all your raises.
I had only one of those left anyway. So I'm going to lose all my raises to keep this thing away from him because I don't know what he's going to do with it, but it's bad. So can I choose how I keep it away from him?
Yeah, absolutely.
My last. I didn't know if I could do that because I'm out of raises. So
go ahead.
Yeah. So is my final thought.
Well, actually, you know what? Technically, since you spent your raise to not give it to him, you're out of raises. You can't take any actions.
Okay.
You just
then
have
I
it. You
stand-
just have the necklace.
yeah, I stand there stupefied, and I just kind of hold it closer to me, and I think as much wit as he can muster with this, because this thing terrifies him, is no.
All right, Edward, since you were affected by the grinning man, why don't you decide who goes next? Merrick hasn't gone in
Merrick.
a while.
Yeah.
Hey. Okay. This is actually a good time to ask the question. How do I turn into a wolf?
Spend a hero point.
Okay, I'm gonna spend a hero point, turn into a wolf. So I have 1 hero point left. And I think it's probably gonna take my last 2 raises, but I want to pop the gold bullet into my mouth before I turn into a wolf,
Cool.
and then basically charge up, jump over the other guys to bite the grinning man, and sort of like use my teeth to jam the bullet into him.
So as soon as you do, as soon as the gold tooth hits the grinning man, he screams this awful, inhuman scream and begins spinning like a whirlwind of smoke.
I'm still
And-
attached.
Oh,
I am swirling around. I'm not letting go. I'm not letting go until
The end scene from Killer Clowns from Outer Space, but with a wolf attached.
Yes,
Yeah, exactly,
yes.
yes.
And that's a great movie. And he dissipates into smoke and dust, leaving like as if he had been burned. Like as pillar of dust sprays all over the corridor in this thin, fine gray dust, like human corpse dust, sprays over everything.
The Schlamman says, you know, upon the retrospect, I think that necklace said gold smashes the grinning man. Apologies. Well done, Merrick. You as wolf, always impressive.
Awesome. So who has raises left? Okay,
That's
just
it.
just Elizabeth? Okay. Elizabeth, do you want to convert your raises into hero points?
I have 2, so however
So-
that works, sure.
You can convert every 2 raises into a hero point.
Okay, sure.
And because that's kind of the end of the scene, the grinning man, vanishes and all that kind of stuff. And that's sounds like a great place to leave off for the game. One of the rules in 7C is you always end the game session on a cliffhanger.
Ooh. Can I add an extra cliffhanger?
Sure.
I had a thought to put a little bow on the mystery. Realizing why the prince was not murdered, the prince shot himself because he realized that if you escape the grinning man, you become the next grinning man upon his death over the course of about a year. So realizing he would be the next, he thought he could end the line, except the reason Caius was so afraid of the grinning man is as a child, he too escaped. Caius's fate is now, how do I stop myself from becoming the grinning man, lest I become the next?
Dun 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 dun. That's fantastic.
I was going to suggest having the corpse be gone, but that's
And the
that's even
corpse is
better.
gone.
And the corpse
And
is
the
gone.
corpse is
yes.
gone.
I like all that.
Yeah.
Canon.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So everybody, that's the nuts and bolts of how 7C works. Of course, all your characters have advantages and things that allow you to break rules and things like that. But did you guys all have fun?
Yeah.
Oh, that was
Absolutely.
great. I really
So
liked it.
once again, I'm going to reiterate that one of the goals that we had for 7C was to help players, give them tools to tell their characters' stories. And so the game is far less about acquisition of wealth and power, because you're a big damn hero. You already have, like, you can take wealth. It's an advantage. You can have temporal power. You can buy noble title. That's an advantage. Those aren't the things that you're doing. In this game, you are a hero and you have hero points and you act in heroic ways. Like you guys saw your quirks were things like, if I do this, I get a hero point.
Mhm.
right? And all of your quirks are heroic flaws, right? So, for example, if you have the pirate, the ship captain background, one of your quirks is you get a hero point if you're the last person out of danger,
Mm.
as you're the last person on the ship, right? So all of the game is geared toward people acting like heroes. And when you do non-heroic things, you get corruption points. And every time you get a corruption point, the GM rolls a die. And if the GM rolls under the number, D10, and if the GM rolls under the number of corruption points that you have, your character turns into a villain, an NPC that is now under the GM's control.
Oh,
And the
snap.
other players have to rescue your character from being a villain. They have to turn them back.
Very cool.
And
Yeah,
if
it's-
you look in the back, you guys all have a copy of Heroes and Villains. In the back of Heroes and Villains, there's an advantage that my partner Jessica wanted, because that's her thing. It's like every player that you've ever met has a thing, right? For me, I want to play the Secret Service guy. I don't want to play the hero. I want to play the hero's right-hand dude that keeps the hero out of trouble. That's my thing as a player, right? And Jessica is like, I want to redeem villains. So there's a mechanic for redeeming villains in the game, and in the back of the Heroes and Villains book, there's a mechanic that makes it easier. There's an advantage that you can take that makes it easier. And that's what 7C is about. It's about giving players the ability to be the GM and acting like heroes should act. And there's a ton of books that you can get for it that are outside of Europe. For example, there's a Caribbean, our Pirate Nations book is a Caribbean one. There's one called Land of Golden Fire, which is Ifri, which is our North Africa one, which is really cool. And then we have our Crescent Empire, which is the Middle East, which has all of the Middle Eastern countries and stuff like that. So anyway, that's 7C. And do you guys have any questions about the game? About like the game mastering stuff we did, or anything in general? Because I'm here for another 15 minutes. I got 15 minutes. I can answer any questions you want.
That's fair. I actually have a question. Does the 7C have anything akin to like the OGL or something like that, the open game license or anything like that? Or
yes, as a matter of fact, our core rules are available
okay,
for in a PDF that's on DriveThruRPG. I can send you a link.
okay, fantastic. Yeah.
And we have like the equivalent of the creator content thing. It's called the Explorer Society. That's on DriveThruRPG.
Excellent.
Sweet.
That actually answers all of my follow-up questions for the other questions. So yes.
For you, this game, I've played a couple of game engines that run a little bit similar. To the players kind of have a significant control over the narrative, which makes what is your planning process for planning out a game? How much of tonight did you have planned out? Because I've run a game system. I don't know if we're allowed to say other game systems on here that we played, or okay. So yeah, like with Monster of the Week, I have kind of like an outline of stuff that may happen, and then when a character is like, I had like a Harley Quinn character kind of come up, which if you know her like origin of how, not just like her origin story, but her origin of like, I made a character whose only purpose was to be X thing, and it was supposed to be a throwaway gag, and then everybody started adding a little piece to this character, and he wound up being one of our favorite characters, but his whole purpose was to do one stupid thing, and then he wound up getting a life of his own. How much do you create going into a world like this? Because I know some of the stuff I do is over planning, but from your perspective, how do you plan for games like this? Do you have like a rough outline? Do you just give a setting and see what the players throw in and then run with that? What does that look like?
When I have adventures, I have like a baseline of what is the starting point. And because I run all my games the way that I run games tonight, I even run D&D this way. Like when a player rolls really high, I ask them, okay, what happens next? Right. And when I was running D&D for another cohort, and it wasn't until the end of the game that they realized we never used hit points, we never used armor class, we never used like any of the stuff. It was just, did you roll 15 or higher? Great. What happens next? And they like, oh, I defeat the monster. Yes, that's true. type thing.
Hmm.
So for that kind of thing, I generally don't have a plan. I have contingencies. So for example, like we we're talking about with the murder mystery, is Elizabeth clearly was like, I want to cut something with my sword. I want to have a scene where I am a badass, where I dispatch 3 people in one action. Right. And by the way, that mechanic comes from near the end of Princess Bride, when Inigo Montoya meets Count Rugen for the first time, the 6-Finger Man.
Hmm.
And Count Rugen says, kill the rest of them, but leave the Dark One for questioning. Right. And the 4 guards rush at Inigo Montoya, and without breaking eye contact with Count Rugen, he just kills all of them. Right. I saw that and I said, I want that in my game. Players should be able to do that in my game. And so that's where that mechanic comes from. But to go back to your question, so tonight the only plan I had was, you're in a room, the room is on fire, the villain has a prince, and if you've seen other, I know that, for example, I know Tony has seen me do this a couple times with the same setup. The exact same setup. There's a villain, has a prince, there's things, and the room is on fire. And every time I do it, the players come up with new things that add nuance and detail to the scene. Sometimes the prince is actually a princess. Somebody can say, can I spend a raise to make it a princess instead of a prince? I'm like, absolutely, yes. Or I'm actually married to the prince. Can I say I'm married to the prince? I'm like, yes, of course you are. 7C works with the rule of say yes or roll dice. You guys familiar with the say yes or roll dice? So whenever the players ask a question, there's 2 answers. Yes, that is true. Or roll dice and let's see what happens.
It's like turning a dice into a no butt. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
So those are the only things I know. I have another scenario that I do, which is you're all pirates on a pirate ship, and you come across a young fate witch who was on a Vidace ship that's on fire. And she has no memory of why she's there or anything. She has an ugly gouge on her forehead. So she's suffering from amnesia. She has no idea where she is or why she's here. And she knows nothing. She's 17 years old, doesn't even know, like somebody says, well, we'll take her to Eisen. And she says, Eisen, who's that? Right. She knows nothing. And then another Vidace merchant warship shows up, and they say, hey, we understand you have a fate witch. Don't ask us why we know. Here's a bunch of gold. Give us the girl and you can have the gold. And that's the only thing I know about the adventure. And everything else the players come up with. Right. So, and I do this with almost all of my games. I don't have plans because I allow the players to have a voice in the game, and I have no idea where they're going to go. So what I do is I have contingencies. I like the players say, "Oh, let's go in this direction." I'm like, "Okay, I got something for that direction. I can do that." Or let's so for example, the mystery thing. I just threw the grinning man in because he's fun. The hobgoblins or whatever they are under the thing fighting over the necklace. I had no idea what the necklace was. I just knew that they had his necklace and they were fighting over it. And I knew that you all would spend a raise to say what the necklace was.
As we did. Yeah.
Which you do, right?
That's fair.
So all you do is drop MacGuffins in their laps, in the players' laps, and let them tell you what the MacGuffin is.
Therapeutically, that's very useful. I can see why it's like you see what somebody puts into a world and it's almost both being experiential medium. I can see that almost being what is the patient dealing with, and then also allowing them to process through it and allowing them to tell you what's going on and then be able to process it almost in the same breath.
Exactly. It's the ability to you give the player the ability to tell you what they want. I want to introduce this thing in the story that is clearly something that I want to deal with. And you give them the ability to resolve it in the way that they want. That's really important.
I like that for therapy in particular. One of my supervisors once told me very early on, I was worried that like something came up with a patient and they were like, hey, this, and I was like, oh no, what if I didn't talk about that in that session? I was like, oh no, what if this never comes up again? And my supervisor said something that I was like, oh, okay, that's very true. If this is really that much of an issue, this will always come up again. And this allows it not just to come up again, but like allow it to come up in multiple ways. So if your encounter and the way you play out that encounter may not be therapeutic the first time, it allows them to, you don't have to worry about, whereas in like D&D, you have to then build the encounter yourself. You allow them to put that back out there, allow it to come back up again. So in the course of several sessions, you don't miss it, allow it to be brought in, and then have several opportunities to then therapeutically grapple with that with the client. I like this system a lot. I'm going to use this.
Well, it's really, I mean, the system is built to accommodate an approach, which is let's give the players GM powers. You can do this in any game system, pretty much. Like for D&D, I say roll 15 or higher and you get to say what happens next. But it has to be in accordance to the skill that you rolled. Right? Are you attacking someone? Okay, you can describe how the fight goes.
But you can't, like, I convinced them. Yeah, I
convinced them. Do you convince them? Right? And as soon as you say, do you convince them? You've opened up the opportunity for them to say no. And in D&D, when you do, whenever they say, no, my character does not do this, you give them inspiration. Inspiration in D&D, I made a quick video about this. In D&D, inspiration is something the GM gives you. You do something cool, you get inspiration. You make the GM laugh, you get inspiration. There is no trigger mechanism. In game design, we call it a trigger, where the player takes an action and activates a mechanic. So, for example, quirks are a really good example of this in 7th Sea. I'm the pirate captain. I make sure I'm the last person out of the burning room. I have done this thing, GM. I get a hero point, right? It's a trigger. It allows the player to activate a mechanic. So the way that you activate the mechanic in D&D is when the player says they roll, they succeed, and they say, in the narration, they say, my character fails and here's how. And you go, you get inspiration for your next roll.
Maybe this is I'm going to ask it anyway. In a therapeutic setting, would it be therapeutic then to allow them to explore why is it important that your character fails? Okay.
I mean, Jared, who came up with the whole idea of player empowerment, what he calls narrative control, he was really big on pointing out that if you watch Ghostbusters, the original Ghostbusters, and even the remake too, or the first Raiders of the Lost Ark, count how many times they fail rolls.
Particularly in the Ghostbusters remake, which big fan of, actually.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, no doubt, like there's a bunch of that whole movie is kind of like, what do you do with failure and how do you spin it?
Yeah. And so the whole thing about failure is that failure isn't always interesting, but it's interesting when it happens at the dramatically appropriate time. When the hero fails when they should succeed. And what is the effect of that? What is the, in storytelling, the biggest thing is like everything in a story should have a consequence. It should have something that follows up. If a detail doesn't have a follow-up, then it shouldn't be in the story.
That's actually one of the things I love about the new Star Wars system, because it's not just success or fails. They have advantages and disadvantages. So you can fail and have an advantage. I call it the Jar Jar effect, right? So I mean, how many times did Jar Jar fail, but things, happened because he failed. Yeah. So you were trying to shut the door because the stormtroopers are coming in. You failed that, but however, because you got an advantage, you shut all the power off, like you forgot, you failed to shut the door, but you shut the power off to the entire base, so it's called falling forward is what I call it. And so even in D&D, I try to do most of that where, okay, you failed to hit him, But how can you change that into an advantage, right? Or describe it in a way where it's not just a failure. So
Yeah, and like in most role-playing games are all about success. Success is good, failure is bad. And it's in game design, it's called the whiff factor. It's like my character sheet says I am a thief. And I'm a really good thief because I have a lock-picking skill of 15. My character sheet says I am good at this. And then I roll a d20 and roll a 1. Clearly, someone is lying to me. Right? And what happens in game design, the worst, laziest mechanic to put into a game is lose a turn. Because as soon as you hit lose a turn, you disengage from the game.
Yeah.
You're like, it's, blah. So in a role-playing game, what happens when someone fails a roll? They lose a turn. And they disengage from the game.
And I got a piece of advice actually, that if somebody's really good at something and they're proficient, this, for D&D in any game really, but unless they're under duress, don't even have them roll because of that.
Yeah.
So the dice only come down and play if you're under stress. Like you're in the middle of a combat, somebody's chasing you, you're under duress. But if you are really proficient at something and you have the time to do it, unless there's like a complication, like a trap or something like that that's about to happen, don't even put the dice on the table. Allow them to do it.
I like that.
Like the take 10, the take 10 rule that show up in
Yeah.
like Pathfinder and some of those others.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like take 10 or take 20, where it's like I'm just really good at this. So
Yeah.
It's called the locked door problem in RPG design. It's like you're in dungeon and there's a door, and the dungeon, the adventure is on the other side of the door, and the door is locked. So the fighter tries to bash it down and fails. And then the thief tries to pick the lock and fails. And the wizard doesn't have a knock spell. What do we do now? Do we roll again? Okay, how many times do we roll again to get by this one door? Right? And the fact of the matter is the player should never be trying to get past the locked door unless a monster is chasing them. Right? That, like you said, unless there is a timer, unless there's some kind of clock, there's some kind of peril, like right behind them, breathing down their necks, they shouldn't be rolling dice. The thief knows how to pick locks. The fighter knows how to bash down doors.
I always throw in like the unusual situations as well onto that, like just like weird stuff, like the door is actually a mimic, or the door is painted on the wall, so it doesn't matter how long you bash at the door.
You're mean.
Yeah, I mean, but that's fair. That is a fair assessment of my character.
I like how you started a rebuttal and then it abandoned.
Yeah, no, that tracks. That tracks.
So I have about 3 minutes left. So do you guys have any other questions before we call it a night?
How do you handle players who really struggle with coming up with details or thoughts or things themselves?
That's a really good question. In 7C, we have a kibitzing rule, which is the player can go, hey, I really don't have an idea. Does somebody else have an idea? And that is a fair move.
Nice. What do you call it?
It's kibitzing.
Kibitzing.
Could you spell that?
K-I-B-I-T-Z. It's a Yiddish word that is used in hearts and spades and other card games where you're playing teams against each other. And kibitzing is when you're passing information to each other covertly.
Yeah,
it's cheating, right?
We call it table talk. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Same
kibitzing is,
Well,
guys, I have a raise here and I don't know how to use it. Does anybody have any suggestions? Fair move.
Okay.
Nice.
How do you engage players that have difficulty engaging? I baby DM here, so only like two or three campaigns that I've run, and they're not in D&D, but I have difficulty particularly with people want to play the game, but they it's not that they're shy, they just don't always have a good idea, so they feel disengaged because of that. So they want to be part of the game, but they always it's a little different from like don't have an idea. It's what maybe think of it, but they don't always know what to do, and you as a DM don't want to like take their turn for them and be like, you could
Yeah.
light it on fire. How do you personally, how do you work with that?
So my solution, whenever I do GM seminars, I have a series of books called Play Dirty, which is unorthodox GMing advice. And one of the things in like the solution to every problem player question, and this is a problem player question, right? Is someone who is not engaged in the game. They're not like the rules lawyer who's like, actually, that's something else, right?
Yeah.
But you want them to have fun, and there's something getting in the way of them having fun. And the solution to every problem player is to take them aside outside of the hearing range with the other players and say, hey, are you having fun? Is there something I can do? Like, because I noticed that you're not speaking up as much as the other players, and it's cool to be shy, and it's cool to not know what to do, and it's cool to show up to the game and watch, right? Because I have one of my players in my regular game, they show up to the game because their friends are playing, and they have a lot of fun watching their friends play. And that's why they're there. And we have an understanding because I took the player aside and said, are you okay? Are you having fun? And they're like, I just love watching you guys do this. Right. And that's their thing. Right. But at the same time, you can say, hey, I don't want you to feel like you have to do anything. If I don't want you to feel like if you didn't contribute anything that you did badly, because this is a social thing. We all get together and we all have fun. And if you want to just sit back and watch and then contribute when you want to, when you have an idea, that's awesome. And that's all I expect. Right. So
Nice.
you've removed expectations. You've told them that their behavior is okay and that it's cool that they're there. And you're not going to replace them with somebody who's like, I'm dynamic and do voices and, and things. Right.
Yeah.
And the more comfortable they get, the more they will start contributing. Because you've told them it is totally cool the way that you are playing the game. Right? That's my advice for that.
I like that.
All right, it's 8:00. We're going to do this again sometime, I think. Are we, Tony? Are we doing this again sometime?
Yeah, you actually are starting the whole new cohort next week. Cohort 8, I want to say.
Okay.
But you're going to be doing some fun stuff, and you'll have free range to do this again. But you do have another one coming up at some.
Cool. So if you guys have any questions for me, just DM me or PM me in the Discord. I'll be happy to answer any kind of questions you have, GMing questions or 7C related questions or D&D related questions. It doesn't matter. I'm happy to answer any questions you want. Just let me know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Really quick before we go, it's not always fun to be the GM. I think some of you guys know that. Sometimes it's like pulling teeth, trying to get people to go. You guys were a lot of fun to run for. Thank you very much for making it a fun evening for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.